Welcome to another episode of Let's Go, the show we created to help entrepreneurs not just survive 2020, but to thrive in 2020. We helped hundreds of entrepreneurs come out stronger at the end of 2020. And here we are in 21, ready to do it again. It's time to get rid of all the excuses. It's time to put the pedal down. It's time to let's go in 21. We just wrapped up our traction series where we spoke with experts around the EOS, traction, and rocket fuel concepts. Today, we're shifting gears. Today, we're going to focus on building connections and professional relationships. And what better way to do that than the master connector himself, Ed Curtis with YTexas. Ed was born and raised in New York and moved to Dallas when he was 25. And to quote the opening line of his book and the most popular Texas bumper sticker out there, he wasn't born in Texas, but he got here as fast as he could. Ed was in commercial banking for over 20 years and saw so many companies relocate into Texas. And in 2012, he traveled the world with Governor Rick Perry in his Office of Economic Development. He assisted in the recruitment of companies to relocate or expand their businesses in Texas. In 2013, he created YTexas. YTexas is an elite business network that helps support, promote, and connect companies that are relocating and expanding in the Lone Star State. YTexas has become a go-to resource for Texas, including its community, commerce, and culture. We're going to learn all about YTexas today. So welcome to the show, Ed. It's great to have you.
Oh, Kurt, it's great to be here. Looking forward to partnering with Hire Better and your team this year. And I have to tell you, when I first came to Austin, you were one of the first guys that I met. I saw you speaking at an event, and it's great to be here.
It's been a while, man. So I'm so glad to reconnect with you, and I'm really excited for our discussion today, and really excited to partner with you guys here in 21. So let's start by telling us a little bit about what YTexas is and why it's needed.
Well, I mean, it's actually a bunch of things. It was formed at the outset 8 years ago as a networking organization for executives that were relocating their businesses into the state of Texas. We started in Dallas, and we, over the last 8 years, expanded around the state. And I think what's happened, COVID is I think helped a lot of companies pivot. But we started to turn into a lot more than just a networking group. We're really turning into a resource, whether it's an online resource or a personal resource for companies that are looking to not only expand here and relocate here, but even companies in the state of Texas that are looking to open up an office in Austin or Dallas that have been doing business here for a long time. So making connections and educating and acclimating people on how to expand in the state of Texas has really been our focus.
I love it. I love how you're helping companies. It sounds like most of them have already made the decision, but you're probably part of that too. But you're helping them to connect and get started with hitting the ground running, so to speak, when they get to their new town.
No, it's all about who you know. I don't care where you are, but in Texas, it just seems like it's a little more important. And I've had the pleasure of living in a few different cities and regions in Texas, and the networking in Dallas is a little bit different than the networking in Austin, which is the fun part for us because people from outside of Texas look at Texas as one big state, but really the regions have their own culture, their own way of doing business. And it's interesting to help people guide them through that.
Well, hold that thought. I want to come back to that in just a second, but I will say that I'm a connector as well, both by trade and by passion. And I tell my team all the time, it's not just about connecting candidates to clients or anything like that. It's about connecting people to something that will help make their lives better. And so when people come to Austin, we might connect them to Little League coaches. We might connect them to gymnastic academies. We might do anything to help support their move to Texas. And I know that fits exactly with what the YTexas mission is.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's a big Toyota or a relocation where thousands of people are moving here, or Tesla, or even a mom and pop organization. I know that you are helping a lot of these companies hire people. It just comes down to people. It's all about the people. And we felt when we formed the organization that some of the organizations that were out there weren't focusing on kind of the onboarding. I use the example, if you're moving into a new town, you have to unpack your bags. And then, when you pay the mover and you've got your electricity turned on, you kind of look at each other and go, okay, what's next? And we saw that there was a need to kind of help people out from a personal level as they enter the state.
So you moved here about 28 years ago. Tell us a little bit about why you moved and what were some of your experiences with that?
Well, I was born in New York City and grew up upstate New York. And what happens in New York typically is most of the work is in New York City. So you have to figure out if you want to live closer to the city, maybe pay a little bit more money, or move far away and get into the city. Because obviously the only way to get to Manhattan is through a bridge or a tunnel. So I grew up upstate in New York, and my dad commuted to Manhattan 2 hours each way every day. He took a train to a bus to a subway to work. And so when I graduated college, I knew I didn't want to do that. I moved into the city. I lived with my grandmother. You know how that would be when you're in your early 20s and you're living with your grandmother.
It's super cool.
It was fun. I knew I wanted to experience New York City. And by the way, I recommend it to any young person. You need to spend a couple of years in New York. It'll toughen you up. But after a couple of years of working in the city, I realized I just wanted a different lifestyle. I didn't want to experience. I've never been south of New York in my life. And at that time, Atlanta and Dallas were the two big up and coming cities. I think Atlanta, that was right around when Atlanta had gotten the Olympics. And then Dallas was it was Dallas. So I took a one-way trip to Dallas, and I came home and I told my family, I'm just quitting my job and I'm moving to Texas. I don't know what's going to happen. I wanted to go back to grad school and eventually come back to Wall Street. And I just got bit by the bug, and I've been here ever since.
I love it. I assume some of those experiences helped plant the seed for YTexas?
Yeah, I did, because about 20 plus years into my banking career, I wanted to get out of banking. I mean, it was a great career. I learned a ton, but it was going through a lot of M&A activity. So you're in and out of a job every few years. It was really hard to build a good culture within the organization. It was a lucrative industry, but I just wanted to get out of it. And I was just interested in learning more about economic development. I mean, I didn't move a company here. I came here as a broke kid, but I really realized how helpful Texans were in navigating through my career. And I mean, I remember the first day I got my banking job, I would walk into offices with a very strong New York accent, and they would give me the business. And I mean, give me their business.
Not the business like you got in New York City, but the business.
They'd make fun of my accent, but then I would get the business. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, they know I'm not from here. They don't know anything about me. I mean, they'd look at me and they'd say, you better treat me right, because if you don't, that's going to be the last piece of business you get. But it taught me a lot. It taught me that business by a handshake really does exist. And I think, once I got into my middle ages, I realized this is something I think that people really need to experience sooner than later. And the fact that so many companies were moving here back then, and even more now, it could create a good opportunity.
Yep. Well, I want to get into YTexas, WHYTexas here in a bit. And I assume, and in fact, I know a lot of companies are moving here for various reasons. Individuals are moving here for jobs. I moved here myself 26 years ago, like many others, looking for a job. There weren't as many opportunities in Arkansas, where I went to college, or Louisiana, where I grew up. So let's dig into what it looks like today. That was 25 years ago. What does it look like today? Why are companies moving to Texas? And are they running to our Tex-Mex, or are they running from something in another state?
That's a great point. Someone was asking me that the other day, and I said, well, it is a push and pull right now. So again, I've been doing this for 8 years, and I can tell you that there have been a constant stream of companies and people moving into Texas. I just don't think it's really, I mean, look, Tesla and Toyota, those big announcements really, I think, hit the front pages of the newspaper. But in the past, it was more of a pull. In other words, people would come here, Texas would recruit them. Now it's a push and pull. So you've got, not only are we still an attractive place to move, but a lot of states now are pushing their people out. So the combination of the push and pull is just creating an enormous opportunity for growth in Texas. But I like to boil down why companies are moving here into really simple things. I don't really get into the taxes and the regulation, which are a big part of the decisions. But I boil it down into, I break them down into three really simple things. One is, I think, the fear of missing out. I mean, when they hear about all these companies, all these people moving here, I don't know about you, but I always get these calls. It's like, look, I don't know what's going on down there, but man, I need to be there, right? And I think that's just how we operate in a normal everyday life. Fear of missing out. Look, social media is the confirmation for fear of missing out. But I do feel like that is creating the wave of, what's happening down there. The second is really simple: making money. People look at Texas and they're like, look, I can make money there because there are a diverse set of industries. It's the land of opportunity. I mean, I know the U.S. is the land of opportunity, but I think now it's kind of the bastion of hope and entrepreneurship. And again, that's always been, I think, synonymous with Texas, but I think more so now. So they want to be where the money is and where the people are. And then last is the culture and the pride. I think people, especially these days, are like, look, I just want to be around nice people. I just want to feed my family. I want my kids to have a good education. I don't want, I just want as simple life as I can find. And I mean, Texas has always been that way. And Texans are proud, and they definitely are concerned about the next generation and their kids. We're not a perfect place. We have a lot of things to work on, but I think those simple things, fear of missing out, want to make money, and want to be around nice people is really the foundation of it.
Well, I love the way you simplified that. I'd love to touch on a couple of things you said. You talked about making money. I'm going to put some other words around it that we hear a lot, and that's pro-business. Pro-business, I think, means a lot of things to a lot of people. And in a positive environment, it means that business can be a change agent and doing good things and making money and doing good. The naysayers would say that pro-business is raping and pillaging the environment and taking advantage of people. What would you say to any of that?
Well, look, everything in moderation. And that's, again, one thing in my old age I've learned is everything in moderation. And it's interesting. We had an interview with a woman, Paula Gold Williams, who's the CEO of CPS Energy. And they provide a lot of the power in San Antonio, but also I think up to about 20% of the power in the state of Texas. And she told me, she said, I asked her, I said, what is the difference between California and Texas when it comes to energy? And she said, in real simple terms, we look at 4 or 5 things. It's safety, reliability, environmental responsibility, and cost. And I think there's another one, I forget what it was, but it was, and all of that, you can't have all of those things, right? It can't be low cost and be completely environmentally friendly. It can't, for it to be reliable, you need to be in, you need to invest in the cybersecurity and other metrics. And she said, in other states, they put a big focus on one of those. And in California, it happens to be environmental. They don't really pay too much attention to cost. And what happens is it gets out of whack. And again, there's no perfect formula right now. But in Texas, we manage the risk in all 5 of those areas. So environmentally, I think we lead in a lot of things. We're actually leading in wind energy, and we're a big leader in all kinds of alternative forms of energy. So I think if you look at our regulations, they make sense. They're not onerous. They're moderate. I mean, it depends on what you look at moderate, but they're just common sense. And I put a lot of focus on regulations more so than I do taxes. And taxes are a big part of it. Don't get me wrong, but there are so many hidden regulations or non-regulations in Texas that when people move here, they realize, oh my gosh, like this is an open landscape. I'm not being looked at and questioned all the time. I don't have to fill out forms. There's not a lot of red tape. There's a lot of freedom to do the right thing. Now, there's freedom to do the wrong thing, and we've got metrics in place there. But I think it's again, man, it's Texas, right? It's like just do the right thing, and you've got all the freedom in the world. So I think that's the mindset. It's very common sense oriented, and it's not as much, you better not do the wrong thing. It's just do the right thing, and you'll be fine.
Where a handshake still seals the deal. I like that mantra. Do the right thing. Hey, one other thing you touched on was culture and pride, and I know that people moving from California and Texas and other places are moving here for a reason. Do you think they'll remember those reasons once they move? And just spoiler alert, not to get political, but I want to make sure those folks remember what they're moving from when they get here and try to create, a bastion of their old homeland.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think we're all creatures of habit and we all have things. It's very hard to change. I mean, that's another thing I've learned as I've gotten older. People just don't change. I mean, you can try to change people, but it's very, very difficult. But I still go back to the friendliness and the open landscape to do what what you need to do to be successful. And nobody can argue with that. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. And again, most of the people I deal with are coming here for an opportunity to maybe save some money, to be in a warmer climate, and all of those things are synonymous with just networking, being friendly, and finding strategic partners. And when they come here and they experience that, they're like, "There's no way I would go back to wherever I was from," because it's just so let's get things done kind of personality. There was another interesting statistic, and this came from Governor Abbott. He was sitting in an interview and they had asked him the same question, but very politically motivated. It said, are people from California or other parts of the state moving into Texas and trying to change their politics? And he had said, well, they had done a poll at the midterms when Cruz was running against Beto, and he was running against a couple of opponents, and he said they polled people when they came out of the polling booth that moved from California, and they asked them which way they voted, and he said it was about 57% of those people voted on the Republican side opposed to the Democratic side. So again, we don't really get into the politics of it, but I think for the most part, people are moving here because they want to get away from where they were, and it's very onerous on taxes and regulations, and they wanted to get away from that.
Gotcha. Well, I didn't mean to put you on the spot too much there.
No, look, everyone brings it up, and at the end of the day, I think we're all just people that want to just have a good life, and I think for the most part, I've also talked to people that moved from like Washington, D.C. and in California, and they said, the one thing they realized is that Texas isn't really that political. Like they said, in DC, everything's political, like everything. And in California, at least Northern California, everything's political. And in Texas, I mean, of course we're political, but it's not like the first thing you talk about, I mean, it really isn't. And they find that refreshing. And so I'm hoping, that we just get things done and kind of put all that stuff aside.
Just do the right thing. All right, let's talk about some of those companies moving to Texas. 2020 was a banner year, as I understand it. Names like Oracle, HP, Tesla, Schwab, Pabst Blue Ribbon, to name just a few. I know there's, I assume 21 looks like it might be quite a bit more. What's your take on the movement in 2020, and what do you think 21 looks like?
Yeah, we've been tracking this for a while. Believe it or not, 2018 was the busiest year we've seen on an annual basis, and we track this. We have a website. It's called the Reload Tracker on our website, and 2018 had the most amount of relocations coming into the state. 19 and 20 were very active, and a lot of the companies you had mentioned, and then some larger companies. 2021 is already on pace to double what 2019 and 2020 did. Just because we're not even through January already, and we're approaching, close to 40% of what we did last year.
So I got to ask, is this good for Texas?
It is good for Texas. And again, I've talked to a lot of people at the, that work with the legislature and our budgets and our infrastructure plans and, the water and the highways and the educational system that all needs to get ramped up. And basically what they say is we have to grow. I mean, we have no choice now, right? If we're going to invest look at all the homes that are being built, look at all the infrastructure projects that we're working on. I mean, I-35 has changed a lot. I know it's taken forever, but it's changed a lot. And it's the main artery through the state. And if you watch Amazon, they're putting their Amazon facilities all down the I-35 corridor because they know that's how we get products and services throughout the state. But I think that's really going to be a big part of the future, is building out our infrastructure and our educational system. And if people don't move here and people leave and half these houses are open and we invest all this money on infrastructure and energy and gas, it could be a problem. I look at that as a good thing, though, because which means we're not going to bust at the seams. I mean, we've got plenty of availability, obviously, for land, but I think it creates this team approach. Like, look, we're growing. I mean, look, your company is a perfect example, right? As you grow, I mean, you never want to stop growing, but you also realize that, hey, if we're going to get a bigger office and we're going to, have better benefits and we're going to do all these other things, we have to grow because we have no choice. And I see that's how Texas is positioning itself. And that's why people like Elon Musk and a lot of these billionaires that are moving here from California, they're looking at the next 20 and 30 years. And they want to be a big part of that. And they want to help build that out. And I think that's the really exciting part about the future is this is not a short-term growth plan. This is a long-term growth plan.
If you're not growing, you're shrinking, and that's makes perfect sense. I totally agree. Hey, on the I think of things, certain things we think about when it comes to these corporate moves that we see in the headlines. Are these companies really moving their companies, or are they moving their headquarters? Are they moving the CEO's address to save on state taxes? What's really happening with most of these big corporate moves?
It's across the board, and it's funny you say that because a lot of the research that we do and we dig in is we ask those tough questions, and we're not doing it to do a gotcha or anything, but we want to find out their level of commitment. I mean, if the CEO is still living in Santa Monica and his people are here and the headquarters is here, but all the C-suite is still living there, I mean, in my opinion, that's kind of a paper transaction. Which that's fine, that's okay, but it's not a full commitment. And sometimes when they do that, they're kind of testing the waters. And if it doesn't work out the way they want it to work out because they're not fully committed, it doesn't work out, and then they just go back. Others are all in. I mean, they move everyone, everything, CEO, everyone, and that's a full move. I will tell you though, probably the most common is an expansion, and that's where the headquarters stays where it is, and they expand here and they open up, whether it's a second office, or for international companies, it'll be a U.S. headquarters, or for manufacturing companies, it'll be a manufacturing and distribution center. And actually, the expansions are the ones that spend more money and hire more people than the corporate relocations. And so all of them are really good for the state, but it is a mixed bag for sure.
I just was part of a documentary on Tesla moving to Austin, and we talked a lot about lower wage jobs coming in to support a working class that's been neglected here for a while in Austin. Any commentary on that? Did we hit the nail on the head on that one?
That I'm telling you, that's the future of the state, because we're a very rural state outside of our major regions, and that middle skill job is our biggest opportunity and our biggest weakness. And that goes for every single region. When I lived in Dallas, that was like the number one, the outskirts, like the Planos and the Friscos, they've got it all down. They have the budget and the money. Some of the other cities south of Dallas and east of Dallas were a little, less fortunate. And if you talk to any economist, any legislator, and this is not political, left, right, center, we have to bring that middle class up, and we have to bring that middle skill level up, which does not necessarily require a college degree, nor does it require any student loans or debt or anything like that. And Tesla is hitting the nail on the head. The average salary of the 5,000 people they're projected to employ is, I think, $47,000 a year. Which again, there's still places in Texas where you can make that money and still have a home for $150,000. But there's also upward mobility within the organization. So you can start at $47,000 and work your way all the way up to 80, 90, 6 figures.
I love it. And I love, I think Elon even had a tweet, that said basically no high school degree even needed. So just be here with a willingness to work and willingness to learn, and we'll get you going. So all good stuff. Hey, let's shift gears a bit. Just go back to YTexas for a minute. Our theme for our February podcast is around building connections and building professional relationships. Obviously, that's exactly what you guys do. What are some of your keys to building your network, and what advice would you give to somebody?
Well, what I'm promoting right now is look outside of your home region. So I was talking to some people yesterday from Dallas, Fort Worth. It was the North Texas relocation professionals. And so it was all in Dallas. And I said, the best advice I could give you is look around the state, see what's happening, because we're all inclined to network with our local chambers, with our local networking groups. And we should, because there's enough business, right around the corner from where we are. But I think the future of Texas is the connection of the innovation that's happening in Dallas and Fort Worth and San Antonio, Houston, and Austin, and really bringing them together, because the companies that are moving here, their vendors and suppliers are probably, for the most part, still where they were, right? And they're looking to bring those vendors and suppliers closer. And I mean, you look at Tesla, there's no way for them to meet all of the needs of their vendor supplier relationships in Austin. I mean, they're going to have to go to Fort Worth, or they're going to go somewhere, and it might as well be in Texas. And all of the major regions, for the most part, are within a few hours drive from each other. So I would just say expand your horizons and meet some people in another market that could help you. And because so many people are moving here, and nobody really has a hold on the market, because there's so many people that are new. So that would be my advice: is expand your horizons statewide.
Nice. One of my favorite tips is seek to serve, especially if you're new to Texas and you're coming into town. I encourage people, don't come here with your resume in hand. Don't come here trying to see what you can get. It's more about serving others, and it's all going to pay itself forward immensely. Some of the best networking advice I got was from a good friend in Dallas, David Washburn, who said he always ends every meeting with the question, "What can I do for you?" And it's just a nice way of twisting it from I'm looking for something to I'm looking to give something. And I think that's the attitude of most Texans is seeking to serve.
Well, no, Kurt, you've nailed it. And what's interesting, and I can say this because I'm from the East Coast, people from the East Coast are very direct. They sometimes look at something like that as, what's the hustle? And there is no hustle in Texas. In New York, there's more of a hustle, but I don't take for granted that people appreciate that, because when you come from another culture and you're not used to that, they're like, well, why would you do something for me without anything in return? And the answer is, it's just because that's how we are. And but yes, that's what makes Texas special, and always give before receiving. And absolutely. I mean, we say that when we deal with these companies that are moving here, we don't want to hit them over the head with every product and service that we have, because they just got here. So making people feel welcome and making them feel like you care about them, I think, is really going to be the glue that keeps Texas together as we grow.
All right, so Ed, I want to go through rapid fire, a few questions for you. So just first thing that comes to mind. All right, you ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, tell me about one of your favorite places in Texas.
Oh, I would say Barton Creek.
I love the Llano River, undiscovered secret in just west of Austin. What is your favorite Texas sports team?
The Stars.
I like the Stars as well. What do you prefer, barbecue or Tex-Mex?
I mean, I go with Tex-Mex. There was only one Mexican food town in my hometown in New York, and I absolutely love Tex-Mex.
It's hard to beat it. Also hard to beat Texas barbecue. All right, let's go through each of the towns. What's your favorite, either Tex-Mex or barbecue in each town? Starting with Dallas.
Mi Casina.
All right, Austin.
Gosh, there's so many. I love Chewy's. I love
Chewy's as well. And their sister company, Hula Hut, is a surprising little Polynesian twist, which is very good. All right. How about Houston?
Uncle Julio's.
All right. They're all over the country now.
I know that they have presence in all of the regions, but love Uncle Julio's too.
There you go. All right. How about San Antonio?
Probably everywhere in San Antonio.
Right? That's a cop out, but it's true. All the big Tex-Mex is good in San Antonio.
There's so many. I don't even have a go-to, but I'd have to say almost anyone.
It's wherever one of your customers or clients is buying is usually the answer, and it's San Antonio.
It's going to be good.
How about El Paso?
Again, I mean, I don't have a go-to. Probably Chewy's. I'm sure there's a Chewy's there.
You can't throw a dead cat without hitting a great Tex-Mex restaurant in El Paso. So I think the same answer applies to San Antonio. All right. What about for barbecue? We didn't answer many questions about that. What's your go-to meat?
Oh, brisket for sure.
Ooh, I'm a pork rib guy. How about your favorite side?
Creamed corn.
Ooh, Rudy's got the best cream corn in town, I think. All right. Lastly, what's your favorite beer? And then I'll have a subset Texas beer. They should be.
Favorite beer is probably Dos Equis.
All right. Texas beer.
Oh, Texas beer. Oh, Lone Star. Come on.
All right. I was going to go. My favorite beer for both Texas and everywhere is Shiner Bock.
Yeah. Shiner's. Yeah. For your amber. Love Shiner. Yeah.
There you go. Hey, man, thanks for playing, Ed. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being here. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close?
No, I think I love what you're doing. Keep up with the good work. And we're really excited to be working with Hire Better. You guys are a class act. And when it comes to Austin, I mean, everybody knows who you guys are. And look, everyone's moving here for jobs and people to meet. So we're excited to be working with you. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. We work all over the state of Texas. We work all over the country of the U.S. And hey, again, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate you. We'll have a little love fest here for a second. I love what you're doing to not only help the entrepreneurial community, but help all companies and individuals looking to move or expand in Texas. Keep up the great work.
Thanks.
And to all of you guys out there, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have another episode next week. We're going to be talking about conscious capitalism and how connections and relationships matter in the world of business and how business can be a change agent for good. So until next time, remember, no excuses and let's go.